You know, I've despised you since the very first day I met you." Jessica Monroe shouts these words across the event hall. It is 9:30 in the evening. The air conditioning is blasting far too cold, and the room smells of wilting flowers. There are 50 guests staring at me, some with their mouths hanging open, others lowering their gaze to their plates. I am sitting at the main table in my dark green dress. My hands are resting on the white tablecloth. They are not shaking. Jessica is standing, holding her champagne flute. Her white dress is a size too small. My son, Ryan, is beside her, chewing on a shrimp. He doesn't look up from his plate. "I can't take it anymore. This whole situation," Jessica says, her voice raspy. "Ryan, tell your mother that after the wedding, she can no longer live in the house." It makes me sick to my stomach watching her shuffle around in those worn-out flip-flops every single day. The guests whisper. Margaret Hayes, my neighbor for 30 years, looks at me with pity. Frank Miller, the man who runs the corner butcher shop, clenches his fists. But no one says a word. No one defends me. Look at her, just sitting there in silence. Jessica continues, pointing her finger at me. Like a statue. That's what she's like every day in the house. Wandering the halls like a ghost, banging pots and pans around at 5 o'clock in the morning. Ryan finally lifts his head. His face is flushed. He takes a gulp of red wine and dabs his mouth with a napkin. "Jessica, please," he says in a low voice. "Not here." "Why not here?" Jessica laughs. "Everyone already knows. Everyone knows your mother is a burden on us. A 67-year-old woman who doesn't know how to do anything but make casseroles and watch her daytime soap operas." I feel the heat rising up my neck, my cheeks burning. But I say nothing. I do not move. I just smile. A small, almost imperceptible smile. Because they do not know what I know. They do not know what I have been preparing for the last 3 months. "Besides," Jessica says, taking a step toward me, "after the wedding, we're going to need the whole house for ourselves, for our children. Your mother can go live in a nursing home. There are plenty of good ones in the city." Ryan nods. My own son nods, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if I were a piece of old furniture that was no longer useful. "Caroline," Jessica says, addressing me directly now, "I hope you understand that things are going to change. You've done your part as a mother. Now it's time for you to step aside and let us live our lives." The silence is heavy, dense. I can hear my own breathing. I can hear the ticking of the wall clock. Everyone is waiting for my reaction. They expect me to cry, to scream, to get up and run out like a defeated woman. But I am not a defeated woman. Not after everything I have discovered. Not after all the months I have spent preparing for this exact moment. "Jessica is right," I say finally. My voice comes out calm and clear. It is time for things to change. Everyone looks at me, surprised. Jessica smirks, thinking she has finally broken me. Ryan sighs in relief, believing this will be easier than he thought. But then I do something no one expects. I raise my right hand and give a discreet signal to the MC standing by the sound system. He sees me. He has been patient. He knows exactly what to do. We have rehearsed this many times. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC says, taking the microphone, "the mother of the groom has prepared a very special surprise for the future spouses. A gift they will never forget." Jessica looks at me, confused. Her malicious smile slowly fades. Ryan stops chewing, his mouth agape. Everyone turns toward the giant screen hanging on the main wall of the hall. The lights dim. The murmur of the guests ceases completely. I continue to smile. Because after 67 years of life, after 40 years of marriage, after 35 years of being a mother, my moment has finally arrived. The screen hums to life. And then, slowly, the video that will change everything forever begins to play. The video that will show everyone who my son Ryan really is, who Jessica Monroe really is. The video that will set me free, once and for all. In the darkness of the hall, as the screen comes alive, I think of only one thing. They had no idea I had it all planned. That for months, I had been gathering proof. That for months, I had been waiting for this exact moment. My revenge is just beginning. It all started 5 years ago, when my husband Theodore died of a heart attack. Ryan was 30 years old then. He was living in his downtown apartment, working at his godfather's hardware store, and he would come visit me every Sunday after church. He would bring donuts and fresh ground coffee. We would sit in the kitchen and talk about his job, his plans, the girls he was dating. "Mom," he would say, taking my hand, "don't you worry about a thing. I'm always going to take care of you. Dad asked me to before he died, and I gave him my word." Those words were a comfort. They made me feel that I was not alone in the world, that my only son loved me as I had loved him for all those years. But everything changed when Ryan lost his job. The hardware store went under, and he could not find anything else. He had bank debts. He had to give up his apartment. One night, he showed up at my house with 2 suitcases and eyes red from crying. "It's just for a few months, Mom," he said, "until I get back on my feet." I said yes. Of course I said yes. He was my son, my only family. The house was large, filled with memories of his father. I thought it would be nice to have the company. The first few months were peaceful. Ryan looked for work during the day. At night, we would watch television together. I cooked his favorite meals. He helped me with the heavy groceries. It seemed like everything would be fine. But Ryan did not find a job. 6 months passed, then a year. He started drinking beer in the afternoons. He would stay up late watching videos on his phone. He stopped helping me with chores around the house. He stopped looking for work with the same energy. "This town has no opportunities," he would say. "All the jobs are for young people who know their way around a computer." I tried to encourage him. I told him things would get better, that he had to be patient. But inside, I was starting to worry. My son was changing. He was becoming bitter, resentful. And then Jessica Monroe appeared. He met her at a birthday party at his cousin Megan's house. Jessica was 23 years old. She worked as a paralegal at a law firm and came from a wealthy family. Her father owned 3 clothing boutiques downtown. Ryan came home that night talking about her as if he had met a goddess. "Mom, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She's smart, elegant, sophisticated, and she actually paid attention to me. I can't believe it." At first, I was happy for him. I thought a girlfriend would do him good, that it would motivate him to get a job, that it would pull him out of the depression he was sinking into. But when Jessica came to visit for the first time, I knew immediately there was something I did not like. She arrived in an expensive dress and high heels. She looked at my home as if it were a dirty place. She sat on the edge of the sofa as if she were afraid of getting it soiled. "Caroline," she said to me with a fake smile, "Ryan has told me so much about you. You have such a lovely home." But her eyes said something else. Her eyes scanned the old curtains, the worn wooden furniture, the yellowed photographs on the walls. Her eyes were judging me. During dinner, Jessica talked nonstop about her job, her friends, the expensive restaurants she liked to eat at. Ryan looked at her, captivated, hanging on every word that came from her red-painted lips. "My family has a house at the beach," Jessica said. "We should go for a weekend, Ryan. You'll love it." After that first visit, Ryan began to change even more. He started criticizing my cooking. Jessica says I eat too much salt, that it's not healthy. He started complaining about how I dressed. "Mom, why don't you buy some more modern clothes? Jessica knows some really great stores." Slowly, my son drifted away from me. We no longer watched television together. We no longer talked in the kitchen. He went out every night with Jessica and came home late. On weekends, he would go to the Monroe's beach house. And when he returned, he always had something to complain about. That the house was too old, that I did not know how to cook modern food, that my friends from the neighborhood were uneducated people. "Jessica says you should learn how to use a computer," he told me once. "That women your age can't afford to get left behind." "Jessica says this house needs a complete remodel," he said another time. "It'll never be worth anything looking like this." It was always, "Jessica says this, Jessica says that," as if that girl's opinions were worth more than mine, as if she knew my own house, my own life, better than I did. But the worst came when Ryan announced they were getting married. It was a Tuesday evening. I was washing dishes after dinner. He came in with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Mom, I have some important news," he said. "Jessica accepted my proposal." End of 2. I forced myself to smile, to congratulate him, to hug him. But inside, I felt a cold knot in my stomach, a premonition, a fear I could not explain. "When are you getting married?" I asked him. "In 6 months. Jessica wants a big wedding. Her parents are going to pay for everything." That night, after Ryan went to bed, I lay awake, thinking about how my son had changed, thinking about the way Jessica looked at me, thinking about the future. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of being alone. Not alone because my husband was gone, but alone because my own son was becoming a stranger. Someone who no longer saw me as his mother. Someone who saw me the way Jessica saw me. As an obstacle. As something old and useless. That was the night I began to understand that my son was no longer my son. He had become someone else. A person I did not know. A person who scared me. The first time I learned the truth was on a Thursday afternoon. Ryan had gone out with Jessica to look at wedding dresses. I was cleaning his room, because he never did it anymore. Under his bed, I found a folder full of papers. At first, I thought they were documents from the job he had gotten at the gas station. But when I saw my name written on one of the papers, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened the folder, and my world fell apart. They were bank documents. Paperwork for a loan Ryan had taken out using my house as collateral. My house. The house my husband and I bought with the sweat of 40 years of work. The house where Ryan was born and raised. He had forged my signature. He had submitted documents stating that I had agreed to put the house up as security for a $20,000 loan, money he had used to buy a new car and to pay for the honeymoon Jessica wanted in Cancun. My hands trembled as I read. My heart pounded so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack like my husband. Ryan had lied. He had committed fraud. He had put the only place I had in the world at risk. But the worst was yet to come. I found other papers. Copies of documents showing that Ryan had been researching nursing homes. He had a list with prices, locations, services. He had marked the cheapest ones with a yellow highlighter. On a loose sheet, in his own handwriting, he had jotted down, "Mom, Oakwood Meadows, $3,000 a month, close to the hospital in case of emergencies." I sat on his bed, the papers in my hands. I could not breathe. I could not think. My own son was planning to put me in a home. My own son had decided my future without asking me a single thing. But there was still worse to come. At the bottom of the folder, there was a yellow envelope. Inside, I found a handwritten letter from Jessica. A letter addressed to Ryan that said, "My love, I already spoke with my parents and they agree. After the wedding, your mom can't keep living with us. It's impossible to start a new family with an old woman in the house. I already checked, and Oakwood Meadows is very nice. They have nurses 24 hours a day and activities to keep her busy. We can sell some of your mom's old furniture to pay for the first 3 months. Don't feel guilty. It's for the best for everyone." I read that letter 5 times. Each word was a knife in my chest. Jessica did not just despise me. She had convinced Ryan that I was a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed from their path. I put everything back exactly as I had found it. I closed the folder. I slid it back under the bed. I walked out of the room on trembling legs and sat in the kitchen to drink a glass of water. For the next 2 hours, all I could do was cry. Cry for the son that no longer existed. Cry for the family I had lost without even realizing it. Cry for the future that others had decided for me. When Ryan came home that night, I had already dried my tears. I had made a decision. I was not going to confront him. I was not going to scream at him. I was not going to cry in front of him. I was going to do something much smarter. I was going to watch. I was going to listen. I was going to gather information. Because if my own son was capable of betraying me like this, I needed to know just how far his treachery went. "How did it go with the dresses?" I asked as he poured himself a glass of water. "Good, Mom. Jessica found a really beautiful one. A little expensive, but her parents are going to help." He lied so naturally. He smiled while he lied to me, as if I were a fool who did not notice anything. "I'm happy for you both," I said. "You deserve the best." That night, after Ryan fell asleep, I began my own investigation. I went through all the papers I had on my desk. I looked for documents for the house, my husband's life insurance policy, my bank account. I discovered that Ryan had been going through my things for months. Some papers were in different places. Others had marks from being photocopied. I also found something that chilled me to the bone. An app on his phone that he had left open on the kitchen table. A voice recording app. There were files dated over the last 3 months. Recordings of our conversations. I put on headphones and listened to one. It was a conversation we'd had the week before about my savings. I had told him I had a little money put away for emergencies. In the recording, you could hear my voice perfectly, stating the exact amount. Ryan had been spying on me. He had been compiling information about my money, my property, my private conversations. That dawn, sitting in the darkness of my kitchen, I understood that the situation was much worse than I had imagined. They did not just want to get rid of me. They were planning to rob me. They were documenting everything to justify that I was a senile old woman who could not manage her own affairs. For the first time in 67 years of life, I felt true terror. Terror of my own son. Terror of ending up on the street. Terror of dying alone and abandoned in a home while they lived in my house with my money. But along with the terror came something I had never felt before. Rage. A cold, calculating, intelligent rage. A rage that did not ask me to scream or cry. A rage that asked me to plan. If Ryan and Jessica wanted to play dirty, I was going to teach them how to really play dirty. If they thought they could manipulate a foolish old woman, they were about to find out they had picked the wrong woman. That dawn, while they slept peacefully, believing they had everything under control, I began to plan my counterattack. They did not know that in 40 years of marriage, I had learned to be very observant. They did not know that I had raised a son and therefore knew every form of manipulation. They did not know that the quiet, submissive woman they saw every day was just a mask. A mask I had worn to keep the peace in my family. But the peace was over, and the mask was about to come off. The next day, my real work would begin. The work of saving my life and my dignity. The work of showing them they had chosen the wrong victim. The work of preparing the complete and utter destruction of their plans. The next day, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, as always. But this time was different. I was not the same woman who had gone to bed the night before. During those few hours of sleep, something had changed inside me. The victim had died. A strategist had been born. I made coffee and sat in the kitchen with a new notebook I had bought the previous week to write down recipes. Now, I was going to use it for something completely different. To plan the downfall of my son and his fiancée. On the first page, I wrote, Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe, Revenge Plan. Below, I made a list of everything I had discovered. The fraudulent loan, the nursing home plans, the secret recordings, Jessica's letter. It was all documented. I had proof, but I needed more. When Ryan came down for breakfast, I had my first performance ready. Son, I said, serving him scrambled eggs. I was thinking yesterday about what you said about the wedding. I think you're right. This house is too old for a young couple. Ryan looked up, surprised. Really, Mom? Yes, I lied with a smile. Jessica deserves to start her marriage in a nice place. You two need your privacy. Ryan's eyes lit up. He thought he had won, that he had finally convinced me to leave voluntarily. So what are you going to do? Where will you go? Well, I said, acting as if I were thinking it over. I've been looking at some options. There are some very nice places for people my age, with activities, nurses, other ladies to talk to. It was a lie, of course, but I needed Ryan to think his plan was working. I needed him to let his guard down. I'm so glad you're thinking that way, Mom. Jessica is going to be thrilled. After breakfast, Ryan left for work, whistling. He thought he had won the lottery, that I would leave without a fight and he would get everything. As soon as he was gone, I picked up the phone and called Arthur Vance, the lawyer who had been my husband's friend for 30 years. Arthur was 72 and retired, but he still helped old friends with legal problems. Arthur, I said, I need to see you urgently. It's a very serious matter. Of course, Caroline. Do you want me to come to your house? No. Better at your office. And Arthur, this has to stay between us. No one can know I came to see you. An hour later, I was sitting across from Arthur in his small downtown office. I told him everything. I showed him the copies I had made of the fraudulent loan documents. I showed him Jessica's letter. I explained about the recordings. Arthur listened in silence, shaking his head sadly. When I finished speaking, he took off his glasses and wiped his eyes. "Caroline," he said, "this is very serious. Ryan committed forgery and bank fraud. He could go to prison. I don't want to send him to prison, Arthur. He's my son. But I also don't want to end up in a nursing home while they live in my house with my money. What do you want to do then?" "I want to protect myself. I want to make sure they can't do anything to me. And I want them to learn a lesson they will never forget." Arthur smiled. It was the first time I had seen him smile since I arrived. "I always knew you were smarter than you let on. Your husband always told me." "Arthur," he would say, "my Caroline seems quiet, but she has the most brilliant mind I've ever known." For the next 2 hours, Arthur and I designed a perfect strategy. First, he would legally investigate the fraudulent loan. Second, he would help me change my will without Ryan finding out. Third, we would document everything Ryan and Jessica were doing. "You need more solid proof," Arthur told me. "You need to record them talking about their plans. You need evidence that they are conspiring against you." He explained how the small recorders they sold at electronics stores worked, how I could hide one in my clothes or in my purse, how I could provoke conversations to get them to say incriminating things. "Are you sure you want to do this, Caroline? Once we start, there's no turning back." "I'm sure," I said. "I spent 40 years being an obedient wife, 35 years being a sacrificial mother. It's time for me to be a woman who defends herself." I left Arthur's office with a recorder the size of a quarter hidden in my purse. I also had a detailed plan for the next 4 months. 4 months to gather all the evidence I needed. 4 months to prepare the perfect trap. That afternoon, I went to the electronics store and bought a larger recorder to hide in my room. I also bought a small camera that looked like an ornament for the living room. The salesman, a very kind young man, showed me how everything worked. "It's to keep an eye on the house when I go on trips," I lied. "You know how things are with security these days." When I got home, Ryan had already returned from work. He was in the living room on the phone with Jessica. He had not noticed I was home. "Yes, my love," he was saying. "I already spoke with her this morning. She's on board. She says she's going to look for a home on her own." I stood listening from the kitchen. "No, it won't be a problem." I think she was even relieved. You know how old people are. They feel like a burden. I turned on the recorder in my purse. "The money? Don't worry. As soon as she's gone, we'll sell some of the furniture and we'll have cash for the first few months. Then we'll see about cashing out my dad's life insurance policy that's in her name." Every word was a stab. But now, every stab was being recorded. Every lie was being documented. "I love you, Jessica. Soon we'll be alone, and everything will be perfect." When he hung up, I walked into the living room with a smile. "Was that Jessica?" "Yeah, Mom. I told her you decided to look for a place to live. She's really happy." "I'm so glad," I lied. "Do you have a date for the wedding yet?" "We're thinking February. Jessica wants it to be in the spring." "How lovely. I'll start looking at homes tomorrow. I want to have everything settled by then." Ryan hugged me. "You're the best mom in the world. Jessica was right. She says you're so smart for making this decision." As he hugged me, I thought about everything I had recorded, about everything I was going to record in the coming months, about the surprise I had in store for them. That night, after dinner, I went to my room early. I placed the larger recorder under my bed and programmed it to record all night. I wanted to hear if Ryan and Jessica talked when they thought I was asleep. The next day, when I checked the recording, I discovered they had spoken. At 11 o'clock at night, Jessica had come over. They had been in Ryan's room for 2 hours, planning my future. "Did you find out how much the house is worth?" Jessica asked. "My Uncle Charlie says at least $500,000. It's in a really good neighborhood." "Perfect. With that, we can pay for the big wedding I want and still have enough left over to remodel everything." "And what if my mom changes her mind?" "She won't. Old ladies like her always end up doing what they're told. Besides, she already signed the loan papers. Even if she wanted to, she can't back out now." Listening to them plan my destruction with such coldness, with such calculation, I felt the last traces of maternal love disappear from my heart. They were not just greedy, they were cruel. They were planning to leave me with nothing while they enjoyed the fruits of my entire life's work. But what they did not know was that I was also planning. And my plan was going to be much better than theirs. Over the next few days, I continued my perfect performance. Every morning, I pretended to look for nursing homes in the newspaper. Every afternoon, I told them about the calls I had made. Every night, I listened to their secret conversations and recorded everything. The quiet woman had awakened, and she was ready for war. For the next 3 months, I became the best actress in the world. Every day I perfected my role as the resigned old woman who had accepted her fate. Meanwhile, I gathered evidence like a professional detective. The recordings piled up. Ryan and Jessica talked every night about their plans, about how they were going to remodel my house, about the furniture they were going to sell, about the money they were going to get from my husband's life insurance. After the wedding, we're changing all the locks, Jessica said, so your mom can't come back even if she changes her mind. What if she comes for her things? We give her an hour to pack the basics. The rest we sell or throw out. It's not like she'll need anything in the nursing home anyway. Arthur helped me change my will without Ryan knowing. Now, all my money and properties would be donated to a children's home. Ryan would not inherit a single dollar. Are you sure, Caroline? Arthur asked me. He's your only son. My son died a long time ago, I replied. This man living in my house is a stranger who wants to rob me. We also investigated the fraudulent loan. Arthur hired a private investigator who confirmed that Ryan had forged my signature. We had enough evidence to send him to prison for 5 years. But I did not want legal justice. I wanted poetic justice. The idea for the video came one night in November. Ryan and Jessica were watching a wedding show on television. They were talking about the ceremony they wanted. My dream is to have a wedding that no one will ever forget, Jessica said. One that people talk about for years. In that moment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to give Jessica the wedding she would never forget, but not for the reasons she expected. The next day, I called Arthur and explained my plan. I want you to hire someone who can edit the recordings into a video, I told him. I want them to take all the conversations where they talk about putting me in a home, selling the house, taking my money. What for? To show it to everyone at their engagement dinner. Arthur was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Caroline, you're diabolical. I love it. We organized everything with military precision. The video editor was a young man Arthur worked with on divorce cases. He knew how to combine audio with images to create impactful presentations. Mrs. Thompson, he said when I explained what I wanted, this is going to be a nuclear bomb. The video was perfect. It was 15 minutes long. It started with photos of Ryan as a child, with me and his father. Soft music played in the background. It looked like a normal tribute. But then, the recordings would start. Ryan's voice saying I was a burden. Jessica's voice explaining how they were going to get rid of me. The plans for the nursing home. The conversations about selling my furniture. All documented. All with dates and times. All in their own voices. The video ended with a sentence that appeared in large letters. So you know who Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe really are. Meanwhile, I kept pretending to look for nursing homes. Once a week, I would leave the house with my purse and come back with brochures from different places. Ryan and Jessica thought I was making arrangements to leave. Have you decided which home you like best? Ryan would ask. I'm between 2 options, I would lie. One is closer to downtown, but the other has better activities. Take your time, Mom. We want you to be comfortable. What a hypocrite. What a liar. But I just kept smiling and acting as if I believed him. In December, Jessica announced they had decided to have a large engagement dinner before the wedding. They were going to invite all the family, friends, and neighbors. They wanted it to be a memorable event. It's going to be in the ballroom at the country club, Ryan told me. Jessica wants it to be very elegant. How lovely, I replied. Can I help with anything? Don't worry, Mom. Jessica's parents are hiring everyone. You just have to show up, look pretty, and enjoy yourself. Perfect. I could not have asked for a better opportunity. A week before the dinner, I called the MC they had hired. He was an older man who had known my family for years. Mr. Davies, I said, I need to ask you a very special favor. I explained that I wanted to do a surprise for Ryan and Jessica. that I had a tribute video I wanted to show during the dinner. Of course, Mrs. Thompson. What time would you like me to play it? When I give you the signal, I said. It's a surprise, so it has to be at the exact right moment. Mr. Davies agreed without any questions. He thought I was just a sweet mother preparing something nice for her son. The last few days before the dinner were the hardest. Ryan and Jessica were excited. They talked constantly about the party, about the guests, about how perfect the night was going to be. In the end, everything worked out, Ryan said to me the night before. You found a place where you'll be happy. We're going to start our life together. Everybody wins. Yes, I replied. We are all going to get exactly what we deserve. That night, I could not sleep. Not from nerves, from excitement. After months of humiliation, lies, and betrayal, the moment of my revenge had finally arrived. I got up early and got ready with care. I chose my dark green dress. I had my hair done at the salon. I put on the pearl earrings my husband had given me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look perfect for my moment of triumph. When we arrived at the hall, everything was decorated with white flowers and gold lights. The guests began to arrive. My neighbors, Ryan's friends, Jessica's family, all dressed elegantly, all expecting a night of celebration. But I knew it was going to be a night they would never forget. A night where the truth would finally come to light. A night where Caroline Thompson would stop being a victim and become justice itself. The event hall was full by 8 o'clock in the evening. 50 people in their finest attire, champagne flutes in hand, cheerful conversations filling the air. The main table was adorned with white roses and gold candles. Everything looked like it was torn from the pages of a wedding magazine. I was seated in my place of honor, next to Ryan and Jessica. I wore my dark green dress, my pearl earrings, and a smile I had perfected over months. The smile of a proud mother celebrating her son's engagement. But inside, I felt something I had never experienced before. A cold calm. An absolute certainty. The tranquility of someone who knows they hold all the winning cards. Jessica was radiant in her form-fitting white dress. She moved through the hall like a queen, receiving congratulations, posing for photos, savoring every moment of attention. Ryan followed her with a lovesick gaze, like a teenage boy. "Caroline," said Margaret Hayes, approaching my table. "You look so lovely tonight, and everything is so elegant." "Thank you, Margaret. Jessica has very good taste for planning parties." As note, have they set a date for the wedding? "In February," I replied with the same smile. "And by then I'll be living in my new home." Margaret looked at me, puzzled. "Your new home?" "Yes. I've decided to move to a place more suitable for my age. Young people need their space." I did not tell her that place was supposedly a nursing home. I did not tell her I had not chosen anything voluntarily. I just smiled and changed the subject. At 8:30, dinner began. A garden salad, chicken marsala, wild rice. The food was delicious. The conversations flowed. Everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. Jessica stood up to thank the guests. She spoke of how happy she was, how much she loved Ryan, how excited she was to start her new life. "And I want to especially thank my future mother-in-law," she said, looking at me, "for being so understanding and supporting us in all of our decisions." The guests applauded. Some looked at me with affection. They thought Jessica was honoring me. They did not know she was mocking me. Then Ryan spoke. He thanked Jessica's parents for paying for the party. He talked about their plans for the future, about the house they were going to remodel, about the children they wanted to have. "My mother always taught us that family is the most important thing," he said. "And now our family is going to grow." As he spoke, I discreetly checked my purse. The small remote control was there. Mr. Davies, the MC, glanced at me from time to time, waiting for my signal. Not yet. First, I wanted them to keep talking. I wanted them to keep lying in front of everyone. I wanted them to dig their own grave. At 9 o'clock, it was time for toasts. Jessica's parents said nice words about love and marriage. Ryan's friends told funny stories from college. Everyone toasted to the couple's happiness. Then Jessica decided to do something unplanned. She stood up again and asked for silence. "There's something else I want to say tonight," she announced. Her voice sounded different, louder, more confident. "Something everyone should know about our family situation." Ryan looked at her, surprised. He did not know what she was going to say. "Our wedding is going to represent a lot of changes," Jessica continued. "Necessary changes so that we can start our life on the right foot." I felt my heart quicken. Was she going to say what I thought she was going to say? "For example," Jessica went on, with a smile that did not reach her eyes, "my future mother-in-law has decided to move to a more appropriate place for her age, a place where she will have the company and care she needs." The murmurs began. Some guests looked confused, others uncomfortable. "It's a very brave decision," Jessica said, "because not all women her age have the courage to accept that they can no longer live alone." There it was, the public humiliation I had been waiting for. Jessica could not help herself. She had to make me look bad in front of everyone. She had to prove that she had won. "I really admire Caroline," Jessica continued, "for recognizing her limitations and making the right choice." The silence in the hall was awkward. People did not know whether to clap or stay quiet. Ryan's face was red, and he was trying to signal Jessica to stop, but she was on a roll. She had started and could not stop. "At first I thought it would be difficult to convince her," she said, laughing, "but it turned out to be easier than I imagined. In the end, older people understand when they are no longer useful." Those words were like a slap in the face. Several guests exchanged shocked glances. Margaret looked outraged. Frank was clenching his fists. "Jessica," Ryan mumbled, "please." "What?" Jessica said. "I'm just telling the truth. Your mom has served her purpose. She raised her son. She was a wife. Now it's her turn to step aside so the new generations can thrive." The venom in her voice was impossible to hide. She was no longer pretending to be sweet. She was no longer acting like the perfect fiancée. She was showing her true colors in front of everyone. And that was exactly the moment I had been waiting for. I stood up slowly. Everyone looked at me. Jessica fell silent, waiting for my reaction, waiting for me to cry, to break down, to run out, humiliated. But instead, I smiled, a wide, genuine, satisfying smile. "Jessica," I said, my voice clear and strong, "you're right about one thing. Tonight is going to be unforgettable." I took the small remote from my purse. I looked toward Mr. Davies and nodded. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Davies announced, taking the microphone, "the mother of the groom has prepared a very special surprise, a tribute video for the future spouses." The lights went out. The giant screen lit up. Jessica looked at me, confused. Ryan frowned. And then, my revenge began. The screen showed photos of Ryan as a child. Soft music played in the background. Everything seemed normal, a typical tribute from a proud mother. But I knew what was coming next, and I could not wait to see their faces when they realized what they had really done. My moment had arrived. The soft music filled the hall as photos of a young Ryan appeared on the screen. The guests smiled tenderly, seeing images of my son playing in the park, blowing out birthday candles, graduating from high school. It all seemed like a normal tribute from a loving mother. Jessica relaxed in her chair. Ryan smiled, relieved, thinking it was just a sentimental video. The guests murmured affectionate comments about what a cute child my son had been. But then, the music changed. It became more dramatic. The family photos vanished, replaced by images of documents, bank papers, contracts, forged signatures. "What is this?" Ryan muttered. On the screen, text appeared in large letters. "The real plans of Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe." The hall fell into absolute silence. Jessica turned pale. Ryan tried to stand up, but I placed my hand on his arm. "Sit down, son," I said in a calm voice. "This is just beginning." The first recording began to play. Ryan's voice echoed clearly throughout the hall. "My mom's getting old. She's not thinking clearly anymore. We have to convince her to go to a home before she realizes what we're doing." The guests looked at each other in shock. Margaret brought a hand to her mouth. Frank shook his head in disgust. "That's not real," Jessica shouted. "It's a lie." But then the second recording started. Jessica's voice. "Old ladies like her always end up doing what they're told. Besides, she already signed the loan papers. Even if she wanted to, she can't back out now." The silence was sepulchral. 50 people stared at the screen, mouths agape, listening to how my son and his fiancée had plotted to rob and abandon me. "Turn that off!" Ryan yelled, trying to stand again. "Let it finish," I said. "After all, you always wanted an unforgettable wedding." The third recording was devastating. Jessica speaking coldly about selling my furniture. "Give her an hour to pack the basics. The rest we sell or throw out. It's not like she'll need anything in the nursing home anyway." Several guests began to rise from their seats. Some looked outraged. Others simply wanted to leave, but no one could look away from the screen. "This is illegal!" Jessica screamed. "You can't record private conversations." "Private conversations?" I replied without losing my composure. "In my own house? Planning to rob me in my own living room?" The video continued. More recordings played. Ryan talking about how he forged my signature for the bank loan. Jessica calculating how much money they would get from selling the house. The two of them laughing about how easy it had been to deceive me. After the wedding, "We're changing all the locks," Jessica's voice was heard saying on the recording. "So your mom can't come back even if she changes her mind." Jessica's father stood up from his table, his face red with shame. "Jessica, what is the meaning of this?" "Dad, don't believe her. That old woman is crazy." But it was too late. The video showed real documents. Copies of the forged papers. Evidence of everything they had planned. There was no way to deny it. The most shocking recording came at the end. Ryan and Jessica talking about my husband's life insurance policy. "As soon as she's in the home, we'll see about cashing out my dad's life insurance policy that's in her name. That money should be ours." "Enough!" Ryan screamed, slamming his fist on the table. "Enough!" But I was not going to stop. Not after months of humiliation. Not after they planned to steal everything I had worked for over 40 years. "There's still more," I said calmly. On the screen, photos of the nursing home brochures Ryan had been reviewing appeared. Documents where he had calculated the costs, notes in his own handwriting about how they were going to get rid of me. The text on the screen read his note aloud. "Mom, Oakwood Meadows, $3,000 a month, close to the hospital in case of emergencies. R." The murmurs in the hall turned into exclamations of outrage. Several people started yelling at Ryan and Jessica. Others simply got up and left without a word. "You are despicable," Margaret shouted. "How dare you treat your mother like that? You should be in jail," Frank added. Jessica desperately tried to explain herself. "You're misinterpreting everything. We just wanted what was best for her." "What was best for me?" I finally stood up. My voice rang out, clear and strong, throughout the hall. Stealing my house was what was best for me. Forging my signature was what was best for me. Planning to put me in a home against my will was what was best for me. Ryan had tears in his eyes, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of rage at being caught. "Mom, please," he mumbled. "We can talk about this in private." "No," I shouted. "No more private conversations, no more lies. For months, you treated me like I was a stupid old woman who didn't realize anything." The video came to an end. The final words appeared on the screen in enormous letters. "This is the true story of Ryan Thompson and Jessica Monroe, so that everyone knows who they really are." The silence that followed was absolute. No one knew what to say. No one knew where to look. Jessica broke the silence with a hysterical scream. This is all the revenge of a bitter old woman who can't accept that her son doesn't need her anymore. Those words were her final mistake. Because they confirmed everything the guests had just heard on the recordings. They confirmed it was all true. "Jessica," I said, looking her directly in the eye, "you're right about one thing. I am an old woman, but I am not stupid, and I am definitely not a victim." I walked toward the microphone that Mr. Davies had left on a nearby table. It was time for my final speech. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I apologize that you had to witness this, but it was necessary for everyone to know the truth. For months, I pretended to be the foolish mother who let herself be manipulated, but in reality, I was gathering evidence, documenting everything, preparing for this moment. Because nobody, and I repeat, nobody, has the right to decide my future without consulting me. Nobody has the right to steal from me, and nobody has the right to treat me like I'm trash." My revenge was complete, but the final blow was yet to come. The hall was in total silence. The few remaining guests looked at me with a mixture of shock and respect. Ryan had his head in his hands. Jessica was sobbing with rage, her runny makeup staining her white dress. But I was not finished. The video had only been the first act. The true final blow was about to land. "Arthur," I said, looking toward a table in the back, "could you please join me?" Arthur Vance stood up slowly. He had been watching everything from his seat, waiting for my signal. In his hands, he held a black leather folder containing the most important documents of my life. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, taking the microphone again, "I would like to introduce Arthur Vance, my attorney, and the attorney for my late husband for 30 years. Ryan jerked his head up. "An attorney? What do you need an attorney for, Mom?" "To protect myself from thieves," I replied, never taking my eyes off him. "Arthur, please explain to everyone what we've discovered." Arthur cleared his throat and opened the folder. "After investigating the documents Mrs. Thompson provided, we have confirmed that Ryan Thompson committed felony fraud by forging his mother's signature to obtain a bank loan, using this house as collateral." Murmurs filled the hall. Ryan turned ashen. "The loan amount is for $20,000, Arthur continued. "Money that Ryan used to purchase an automobile and for personal expenses, including the down payment for a honeymoon trip to Cancun." "That's not true," Ryan yelled. "Mom gave me permission." "Permission?" Arthur smiled coldly. "Do you have any document proving that permission? Any paper signed by your mother authorizing the loan?" Ryan fell silent. He had nothing because he had never asked for my permission. "Furthermore," Arthur went on, "we have evidence that Ryan was planning to have his mother committed against her will and to appropriate her assets. This constitutes attempted property fraud and elder abuse." Jessica finally found her voice. "You can't prove any of that." "Can't we?" Arthur pulled a small device from his pocket. "All the conversations you heard in the video were recorded in this house over the past 3 months. We have over 20 hours of recordings where you specifically plan how to rob and abandon Mrs. Thompson." The silence was deafening. Every word from Arthur landed like a hammer blow. "But that's not all," I continued. "Arthur, show them the new will." Arthur produced an official document with seals and signatures. "Mrs. Thompson amended her will 2 months ago. Ryan Thompson is no longer the heir to anything whatsoever." Ryan shot up as if he had been shot. "You can't do that. I'm your only son." "You were my only son," I replied. "Now you are just a stranger living illegally in my house." "Where is everything going to go then?" Jessica asked, her voice cracking. "My entire inheritance," I said with satisfaction. "My savings, my house, my life insurance policies, everything will be donated to the Street Jude's Children's Home, to children who actually need help, not to greedy adults who want to rob their own mother." Ryan swayed on his feet. He grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. "Mom, please, can we fix this? Can we talk?" I laughed bitterly. "How do we talk after you forged my signature? How do we talk after you planned to have me committed? How do we talk after you calculated how much money you would make from my death?" Arthur held up another document. "We also have an eviction notice. Ryan Thompson has 24 hours to vacate his mother's property." "That's illegal," Jessica screamed. "You can't just kick him out like that." "Illegal?" Arthur looked at her with contempt. "Like forging documents? Like planning to rob an elderly woman? Like conspiring to commit fraud?" I walked over to Ryan and looked him directly in the eyes. My son, the baby I had held in my arms, the boy I had raised with so much love, the man who had betrayed all of it for money. "Ryan," I said in a calm voice, "for 35 years, I gave you everything. My love, my time, my energy, my money. I sacrificed my own life to give you the best life possible." Tears streamed down his cheeks. "But it was too late for tears. And you repaid me by planning to steal everything from me and abandon me in a home as if I were garbage. As if the years I dedicated to raising you were worth nothing. Mom, No," I interrupted. "You no longer have the right to call me Mom. Mothers are for children who respect them. You are just a thief who happens to have come from my womb. I turned to Jessica, who was still crying in her chair. "And you, Jessica Monroe? You, who told me I disgusted you from the first day? You who planned to get rid of me like a piece of old furniture. Caroline, Now it is you who disgusts me, I said. Not for your face or the way you dress. You disgust me for your rotten soul, for your heart full of malice. Arthur put the documents back in his folder. Mrs. Thompson, would you like us to proceed with criminal charges? Everyone held their breath. Ryan and Jessica looked at me in terror. They knew I had enough evidence to send them to prison for several years. I thought about my answer. I thought about justice. I thought about revenge. I thought about 40 years of happy marriage. I thought about 35 years of sacrificial motherhood. No, I said finally. I'm not going to send them to prison. Ryan sighed in relief. But, I continued, if you ever come near me again, if you try to contact me, if you even drive down my street, Arthur will file all the charges immediately. I approached the microphone one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry you had to witness this, but sometimes it is necessary to show the truth, no matter how painful it is. The few remaining guests began to applaud, timidly at first, then with more force. Margaret stood up and shouted, "Well done, Caroline. Those miserable people deserved it." Others joined in the applause. For the first time in months, I felt respected, valued, strong. Ryan and Jessica gathered their things in silence and left the hall without saying goodbye to anyone. Their parents followed, ashamed and humiliated. The hall emptied slowly. The guests left, discussing what they had witnessed. Some gave me supportive hugs before they left. When I was finally alone with Arthur, I sat down in a chair and took a deep breath. "How do you feel?" he asked me. "Free," I answered. "For the first time in years, I feel completely free." But I knew the real freedom would come later. When I got home and Ryan was no longer there. When I could walk through my own house without fear. When I could begin my new life. My real life. 3 days later, my house was empty. Ryan had come for his things with 2 friends and a moving truck. He did not say a word to me. He did not look me in the eye. He packed his belongings in silence and left forever. Jessica did not come. I suppose she did not have the courage to face me after what had happened at the hall. I walked through the empty rooms, feeling something I had not experienced in years. Peace, real silence. Not the tense silence of someone tiptoeing through their own home, but the golden silence of someone who is finally in control of her own destiny. Ryan's room no longer smelled of beer and dirty socks. The living room no longer had his video games strewn everywhere. The kitchen no longer had his dirty dishes waiting for me to wash them like a maid. For the first time in 5 years, my house was truly mine. That first night, I slept better than I had in a long time. I did not have to listen for secret conversations. I did not have to pretend I was asleep while they planned my future. I did not have to act like the foolish old woman who understood nothing. The next day, my real new life began. Arthur helped me nullify the fraudulent loan. The bank, upon seeing all the evidence, decided not to prosecute Ryan legally, but they canceled the debt immediately and placed an alert on his credit file that would make it difficult for him to get loans for many years to come. "It's a kind of justice," Arthur told me. "He won't go to jail, but he won't be able to commit fraud so easily anymore." I also changed all the locks on the house. I wanted to be certain that Ryan could not get in, even if he had copies of the keys. The first few days were strange. After 5 years of having people in the house, being alone felt odd. But not alone in a bad way. Alone in the sense of freedom. Alone in the sense of being able to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I could watch my soap operas without anyone making fun of me. I could cook my casseroles without anyone criticizing them. I could walk around in flip-flops in my own house without anyone telling me I was a ridiculous old woman. The story spread through the neighborhood in a matter of days. People talked about what had happened at the engagement dinner. Some congratulated me when they saw me on the street. Others looked at me with a mixture of pity and admiration. Margaret came to visit me every afternoon. "Caroline," she would say, "I never thought you were capable of something like that. I always saw you as so quiet, so submissive." "I didn't know I was capable either," I would reply. "Sometimes you don't know your own strength until you have no other choice." A week later, I received a call I did not expect. It was Jessica's mother. "Caroline," she said in an ashamed voice, "I wanted to apologize for what my daughter did. We didn't know anything about their plans." "I know," I replied. "You are not to blame for what your children did. Jessica is devastated. She says you ruined her life." I was quiet for a moment. Then I answered, "I didn't ruin anyone's life. I just showed the truth. They ruined their own lives with their decisions. Is there any way to fix this? Any way you can forgive the kids?" "Ma'am," I said firmly, "forgiveness is for those who are truly sorry. Your children weren't sorry they hurt me. They were sorry they got caught. That is a very big difference." She did not call again. 2 weeks later, Arthur brought me news about Ryan and Jessica. They had broken up. Jessica's family had called off the wedding. Ryan had moved to another city. "Does it make you sad?" Arthur asked. "No," I answered honestly. "I'm sad to have lost the son I thought I had, but that son never really existed. The man who lived in my house was a stranger." A month later, I made a decision that surprised even myself. I decided to travel. I had lived my whole life in the same town. I had gotten married there, raised my son there, been widowed there. I had never been away for more than 2 days at a time. But now I had savings. I had time. And I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted. I bought a train ticket to Chicago. It was the first time in my life I had traveled alone. The first time I had made a decision just for me, without consulting anyone. The trip was beautiful. I saw landscapes I had never seen. I met new people on the train. I stayed in a small but clean hotel. I walked through parks I had only seen on television. During those 5 days, I realized something important. I was not just Ryan's mother. I was not just Theodore's widow. I was not just the victim of a family betrayal. I was Caroline Thompson, a 67-year-old woman with a whole life ahead of her, with stories to tell, with places to see, with experiences to live. When I returned from the trip, I started making changes to my house. I painted the walls brighter colors. I bought new plants. I replaced some furniture with pieces I liked better. I also started going out more. I joined a group of ladies who met every Wednesday to play bingo. I started going to church on Sundays not out of obligation, but because I enjoyed the company. I even bought new clothes, dresses that made me feel pretty, comfortable yet elegant shoes, earrings that sparkled when I moved. 6 months after the engagement dinner, I was sitting in my garden drinking coffee when a certified letter arrived. It was from a lawyer in the next town over. Inside was a letter from Ryan. A letter asking for forgiveness, saying he understood his mistake, begging me to forgive him and give him another chance. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. I did not reply. Not because I was cruel, not because I could not forgive, but because I understood something fundamental. Forgiveness does not mean going back to being a victim. Forgiveness does not mean allowing someone to hurt you again. I could forgive Ryan in my heart. I could wish him happiness in his new life. But that did not mean I had to let him back into mine. Some decisions are forever, and walking away from someone who betrays you is one of those decisions. That night, sitting in my renovated living room, I reflected on everything that had happened. On the woman I had been and the woman I had become. I had lost a son. But I had gained something more valuable, my dignity. I had lost a family, but I had reclaimed something more important, my freedom. I had lost the illusion of being loved unconditionally, but I had discovered something more powerful, the ability to love myself. I stood up and looked at myself in the living room mirror. I saw a 67-year-old woman with silver hair, expression lines around her eyes, and something new in her gaze. Strength, determination, peace. My story is my own now, I said aloud to my reflection. It's just beginning. And for the first time in decades, those words did not scare me. They gave me hope, because at 67 years old, I had learned the most important lesson of my life. It is never too late to defend your dignity. It is never too late to start over. And it is never, ever too late to choose to be free.